If there were an award for the palest face in the history of infidelity, my husband's name would be etched in gold on the trophy. Because the moment he realized the truth had arrived, I swear every Hollywood actor would bow in awe. "So you're sleeping with my husband while planning your wedding to someone else?" The words hung in the air like a guillotine blade. I stood at the entrance of the private room at Verdi's, where 20 women in shimmering dresses froze mid-celebration. My husband Ethan was there too, dressed, as I still can't believe this, a fake stripper. His eyes widened in horror as I walked in with 3 people, her fiancé, Daniel, her father, and her very devout mother clutching a cross necklace. The look on Lily's face was worth every second of the pain I'd endured. Her flawless makeup couldn't hide the blood draining from her cheeks. The bride-to-be sash suddenly looked like a cruel joke across her chest. It wasn't how I imagined spending my Thursday night 3 hours earlier. I had been making dinner, waiting for my husband to come home from what he called an emergency client meeting, 16 years of marriage. And I still believed him when he texted he'd be late, faithful, trusting Rachel. That's who I'd always been. I remember stirring the pasta sauce when his smartwatch notification appeared on our shared tablet, a message from Lily Project that read, "Can't wait to see you tonight. The girls are so excited about the fake stripper surprise. Best maid of honor and secret boyfriend ever." XO8XO time stopped. My wooden spoon dripped sauce onto our kitchen tiles. My hands started trembling uncontrollably, the wooden spoon clattering to the floor as my mind screamed that this couldn't be real. My chest felt like it was caving in, a cold wave of nausea rolling through me so strong I had to grab the edge of the counter to keep from collapsing. As I read it 3 times, the tablet revealed more months of messages, hotel receipts, inside jokes about deceiving the wife and the fiancé, and photos. God. The photos. Ethan has been mentoring me. She told me at the company holiday party 6 months ago, her hand lingering too long on my husband's arm. I'd pushed away my discomfort because I didn't want to be that wife, insecure, jealous, untrusting. I sank to the kitchen floor, surrounded by shattered assumptions. My marriage wasn't just imperfect. It was a facade. 16 years, 4 cities, 3 career changes, all those nights. I'd comforted him through work, stress, not knowing work stress, had silky blonde hair, and was half my age. The pasta. Water boiled over, but I couldn't move my mind, was already calculating, processing, deciding I wasn't going to scream or break things. Tears blurred my vision, hot and unstoppable, but I refused to let them fall completely. A hollow ache settled in my chest, heavier than anything I'd ever carried, as if the weight of every lie had finally found its place inside me. I wasn't going to call him crying. That's what he'd expect, emotional Rachel always leading with her heart instead of her head. No, this required something else entirely. It took 17 minutes to find Daniel on social media, 22 minutes to introduce myself through a direct message, 40 minutes for him to call me back, his voice breaking as I shared evidence, and 90 minutes for us to create a plan with his reluctant assistance. Her parents are in town for wedding preparations, he told me, voice hollow with shock. They're staying at the Bellhaven Hotel. I hadn't put on makeup, hadn't changed out of my jeans and sweatshirt. My hair was in a messy bun, and I didn't care. I drove to the hotel with my hands steady on the wheel, rehearsing what I'd say. The entire drive felt unreal. Every streetlight blurring through my tears, every memory of Ethan's smile now a blade slicing into my thoughts. I kept hearing his laugh in my head, that same laugh I used to find comforting, now twisted into something cruel. The elderly couple in room 509 opened their door to find a stranger claiming their future daughter-in-law was cheating with a married man, my husband, and tonight they could see proof. "This is absurd," Mrs. Carter had said, clutching her sweater. "Lily is devoted to Daniel. They've been planning this wedding for over a year." Mr. Carter studied the messages on my phone with narrowing eyes. "Where is this happening?" "Verdi's downtown private room in the back. Her bachelorette party starts at 9. Your daughter doesn't know it, but my husband is the entertainment." That's how 4 strangers ended up in my car, driving in tense silence toward the restaurant. Daniel stared out the window, occasionally wiping his eyes. Mr. Carter kept clearing his throat. Mrs. Carter prayed quietly, beads clicking between her fingers. "What exactly do you hope to accomplish?" Daniel finally asked me. I checked my rearview mirror before answering the truth. Nothing more, nothing less, and after the truth he pressed, I didn't have an answer. Then I was operating on autopilot, driven by something beyond pain, a cold, clear determination I'd never felt before when we arrived. At Verdi's I could hear the party from the hallway, music, laughter, squealing. The hostess tried to stop us, but Mr. Carter mentioned his daughter's name with such authority that she stepped aside, and now here we were, 20 women frozen in shock. My husband, in ridiculous tearaway pants, stopped mid-dance, and Lily, her champagne glass slipping from her fingers, crashing to the floor in perfect synchronization with her carefully constructed lies. Rachel, Ethan, finally managed. This isn't what it looks like, I finished for him. That's exactly what your messages said. You'd say if caught. The bridesmaid started whispering. Someone awkwardly turned off the music. I felt my pulse hammering in my ears, every nerve on fire as I stepped fully into the room, my eyes meeting Ethan's wide, panicked stare. The humiliation and rage crashed together inside me, sharp enough I thought it might split me open. For one brief, terrifying moment, I worried I'd scream or sob uncontrollably, that I'd lose all composure and confirm everyone's worst stereotypes about the crazy wife. The fear of unraveling right there in front of strangers nearly paralyzed me, but I forced myself to keep moving. I felt strangely calm, like I was watching this happen to someone else. Lily, her mother's voice quavered. What is the meaning of this? Lily's mascara was already running, Mom. Dad. It's complicated, Daniel. I can explain. Daniel stepped forward. We're 3 weeks from our wedding. 3 weeks my family has spent a fortune. You've met my grandparents. You helped my little sister pick her junior bridesmaid dress. His voice broke. Was any of it real? The room was utterly silent. Now I could feel everyone watching this collapse of multiple lives in real time. My husband took a step toward me and I held up my hand. Don't, I said simply, just don't. The silence shattered as Lily's bridesmaids started grabbing purses and jackets, desperate to escape the unfolding catastrophe. A tall blonde whispered too loudly, I always thought something was off about her. And that boss of hers. Another muttered, oh my God, her registry gifts already arrived at my house. Lily stood frozen in her white future. Mrs. Bennet, satin robe, her carefully constructed world collapsing in real time. My husband, still dressed in that ridiculous outfit, had backed himself against the wall, trapped between the buffet table and Mr. Carter's increasingly menacing stance. 16 years, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. 16 years. Ethan and I had to find out through a watch notification. The humiliation burned deep in my chest. I felt a raw ache tearing at my insides. Memories of every time I'd trusted him flashing through my mind like cruel slides on a projector. The nights waiting by the phone, the warm smiles he gave me as he lied. Each recollection felt like a knife twisting deeper. How many people knew? How many colleagues had exchanged knowing glances when I brought homemade cookies to his office holiday party? How many dinner conversations had I enthusiastically shared about our vacation plans while he was mentally cataloging lies? Ethan attempted damage control. Rachel, please, let's discuss this privately. This is embarrassing for everyone. Embarrassing. I laughed, the sound sharp and unfamiliar, even to my own ears. You're worried about embarrassment. Now, after showing up at your mistress's bachelorette party dressed like Magic Mike. That's where you draw the line. Daniel had moved to stand beside me, his engagement ring still on his finger, catching the light with cruel irony. How long, he asked, directing the question at both betrayers. Lily's tearful eyes darted between him and my husband. Daniel, baby. It's not serious. It's just 8 months, I interrupted, based on the hotel receipts. I found 8 months of working late and weekend conferences. I turned to Ethan. Remember when you missed my father's 70th birthday because of that emergency client meeting in Seattle? Turns out you were only 15 minutes away at the Lakeshore Inn with her. The memory of sitting alone at that birthday dinner, making excuses for my husband's absence, hit me with renewed force. My father had looked so disappointed, but I defended Ethan, believing his dedication to work was for our future. I'd called him that night, describing the cake, saving him a piece, all while he was with her. Mrs. Carter suddenly moved toward her daughter, her cross necklace still clutched tightly. We raised you better than this, Lily Ann. Your grandfather was a deacon. Your aunt is a nun, and you've been. She couldn't finish crossing herself. Instead, Mom, it's complicated. Lily, Ethan and we just connected on a different level. A different level, I echoed. Let me guess he told you. Your ambition was inspiring, that you understood his deepest thoughts, that his wife, that would be me, just doesn't get him anymore. The flash of recognition in her eyes confirmed I'd hit the mark. He said the same things to me 16 years ago. I continued when I was his ambitious young colleague, and he was engaged to someone else that silenced the room. Even Ethan looked stunned that I knew. Yes, I found those messages too, I told him quietly. Caroline's tearful emails when you broke it off 2 months before your wedding. History repeats, doesn't it? I hadn't known about Caroline when we got together. He told me his engagement ended mutually, that they'd grown apart. Naturally, I'd believed him completely. And as I stood there, I felt the weight of every time I'd chosen to trust him pressing down on my chest like a physical force. Memories of whispered promises and warm embraces, now twisted into knives. My heart felt raw and exposed, each beat echoing with a painful question. How could I have been so blind? Another voice in my head hissed that maybe it was all my fault, that if I'd been more exciting, more attentive, none of this would have happened. The shame and self-blame curled tight in my stomach, even as I knew deep down it wasn't true. Now I wondered if Caroline had stood somewhere feeling exactly as Daniel did. Now betrayed, replaced, discarded. Lily's father had remained ominously quiet until now. My daughter is about to humiliate our entire family, he finally said, voice tight with controlled rage. 300 guests. Your mother's entire prayer group, your grandparents flying in from Ireland. Daddy, please, we paid for everything. He continued, because Daniel's parents couldn't afford to $70,000. Lily, for what? So you could play house with a married man, twice your age. Ethan flinched. At twice your age, at 49 to her 28. It wasn't quite true, but the point landed. One of the bridesmaids, who hadn't managed to escape, raised her hand awkwardly. Should we let go? Or no one answered her. Daniel had found his voice again, addressing Lily with devastating quietness. You let me book our honeymoon. Yesterday, non-refundable. You were texting me about our first dance song this morning, all while planning to see him tonight. I watched Lily's face as the full impact of her actions began to register. The careful compartmentalization of her two relationships was collapsing, worlds colliding catastrophically. I felt a strange sense of both vindication and sorrow, because watching her squirm under the truth didn't bring the satisfaction I thought it would. Only a deeper ache that all our lives were unraveling so publicly. You gave me this. Daniel pulled out a handwritten note from his wallet. Our anniversary last month. You're the only man I've ever truly loved. Was that before or after meeting him at the Lakeshore Inn? Lily's mascara-streaked face crumpled. Daniel, it was a mistake. Ethan means nothing. Thanks, my husband muttered bitterly. Nothing. I challenged her. The messages I read didn't sound like nothing. They sounded like you were planning a future, discussing how to handle the fallout when you both eventually left us. I watched the blood drain from Daniel's face as this new information hit him. Lily shot me a look of pure hatred. That's right. I continued addressing everyone. They weren't just sleeping together, they were plotting after the wedding. After Lily secured Daniel's family inheritance, there would be a convenient divorce, and poor Ethan would finally escape his controlling wife. My voice didn't break, but I felt something crack inside me. The casual cruelty of their discussions about me, about our life together, had been the most painful part of the discovery. Not just the betrayal, but the rewriting of our entire history in their messages. I was the villain, needy, suspicious, cold, never the woman who had nursed him through pneumonia, who had supported his career changes, who had buried his mother while he was too grief-stricken to function. I gave you everything, I said to Ethan, finally allowing the pain to surface when you wanted to quit your corporate job to start the consulting firm. I worked 2 jobs to support us when you were depressed after your mother died. I slept on the floor beside you for weeks because you couldn't bear to be alone. A few of the remaining bridesmaids looked away, embarrassed to witness such raw emotion. I gave you everything. I repeated, my voice dropping to almost a whisper. and you gave her the parts of yourself that were supposed to be mine. The manager of Verdi's appeared at the doorway, drawn by the commotion. Is everything all right here? We've had complaints about. He stopped, taking in the scene. The tearful bride-to-be, my husband in his ridiculous outfit, the shocked parents, and the lingering uncomfortable bridesmaids. Everything's fine, I said calmly. Just a small, private matter. A small, private matter. Ethan finally found his courage. Rachel, you've created a scene that's embarrassing everyone. This is exactly why. Why what I challenged him, why you sought comfort elsewhere. Go ahead, make me the villain. It's what you've been doing in your messages for months. Ethan straightened his shoulders, shifting into the confident corporate persona. I knew so well, everyone. I apologize for this uncomfortable situation. My wife has been struggling with some emotional issues lately. And emotional issues, I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Is that what we're calling this? I felt something inside me snap, a deep and ancient fury boiling up from a place I didn't know existed. A heat rushing through my veins that burned away every last shred of doubt or hesitation. His words felt like acid, each syllable corroding the love I'd once had for him, leaving only rage and icy clarity in its wake. I reached into my bag and removed a folder, navy blue, labeled with our accounting firm's logo. I'd prepared it 3 hours ago, after finding the messages while operating on a strange detached clarity I'd never experienced before, 2 weeks ago. I told the room I met with our financial advisor for what I thought was a routine portfolio review. He mentioned something odd, a series of large transfers from our joint investment account to an LLC. I didn't recognize. I opened the folder, removing several printed statements. Ethan's face went slack with recognition. Apex Consulting Group, I continued. Sounds impressive, doesn't it? Except it doesn't exist, at least not as a legitimate business. It's a shell company you created to funnel our money into a separate account, nearly $300,000 over the past year. The room had gone completely silent. Even Lily looked shocked. Rachel, Ethan started. I didn't confront you. I continued as if he hadn't spoken. I was confused, concerned there was a misunderstanding, so I did some investigating. And do you know what I found? Ethan, apartment listings in your search history, real estate inquiries in Seattle, where Lily's new job starts next month. It turned to Lily. Did he tell you he was going to surprise you with a luxury apartment using money from our retirement fund, money we saved together over 16 years? Lily's stunned expression answered my question. I've been planning this exit for months, I said, my voice steady, despite the emotions roiling beneath, not knowing exactly what was happening, but sensing something was deeply wrong. I moved half our assets into accounts you can't access. I documented every unusual withdrawal. I hired a forensic accountant who's been tracking your financial movements since March. Ethan's face had gone from red to ashen. You had no right. I had every right. I cut him off. Marriage is a legal partnership. Ethan, something you seem to have forgotten while playing sugar daddy with our shared resources. I addressed Lily directly. He can't afford you, by the way. The fancy hotels, the expensive gifts, it's all borrowed against our home equity, a home I helped pay for. He's mortgaged our future to finance your affair. Mr. Carter stepped forward, his business instincts clearly triggered. How much debt are we talking about? Nearly $200,000, I answered, not counting what he's already siphoned from our accounts. Daniel looked bewildered. Why would you need his money? Your family is not as wealthy as they appear. I finished for him. I did my research on everyone involved. The Carter family business has been struggling for years. Your future father-in-law's company filed for Chapter 11 restructuring last year. Mrs. Carter gasped softly, and her husband placed a restraining hand on her arm. That's private family business, Mr. Carter said stiffly. So is my marriage, I replied without heat. It turned back to Ethan, who was now leaning against the wall, as if he might collapse. You thought you were so careful, but you left breadcrumbs everywhere. The secondary email account you forgot log out of on our home computer. The business credit card statements delivered to our house. The hotel loyalty program that sent a congratulations on your 5th day email to your personal account. I'd been collecting these pieces for months, not fully understanding what they meant, just knowing something was wrong. Each discovery had been a small wound, but I'd tucked them away, made excuses, told myself I was being paranoid. 3 months ago, I hired a lawyer, I continued. She's been building a case for financial fraud within our marriage. Everything is documented. Everything is ready. This wasn't entirely true. I'd consulted a lawyer once casually about updating our wills, but Ethan didn't need to know that the financial documentation was real, though. I'd always been the detail-oriented one in our relationship. You're bluffing, he finally said, but his voice lacked conviction. Am I? I held his gaze. Call our accountant. Ask him who requested the audit of our investment portfolio last month. Ask him who's been tracking every unusual transaction since spring. Ethan swallowed hard, and I knew he wouldn't make that call, because even if I was exaggerating some details, he knew the core truth. He had been stealing from our future to finance his affair and their planned escape. I turned to Daniel, softening my tone. I'm sorry you got caught in this. I truly am, but wouldn't you rather know now than after the wedding, before you're legally bound to someone who could do this? Daniel nodded, slowly, twisting his engagement ring. Thank you, he said quietly, for having the courage I didn't. Lily made a desperate lunge toward him. Daniel, please, it was a mistake. I was confused for 8 months. He asked, stepping back from her reach, confused through our engagement party, our wedding tasting, our counseling with the minister. The remaining bridesmaids had formed a tight cluster near the door, witnessing the implosion of what should have been a celebration. One of them, the maid of honor based on her special sash, looked particularly devastated. I've known you since we were 14, she said to Lily. I've been planning your bachelorette party for months. You let me spend thousands of dollars, took time off work for your bridal shower, and all while she gestured helplessly at Ethan. Lily's carefully constructed house of cards was collapsing from all sides, her fiancé, her friends, her family, all witnessing the unraveling of her deception. This isn't who I am, she whispered more to herself than anyone else. It's exactly who you are. I corrected her gently. It's who you both are, people willing to hurt others to get what you want. The only difference is I'm not playing the victim anymore. The door to the private room opened again this time. It was Mark Bennett, Ethan's business partner and oldest friend. I'd texted him from the car. What the hell, Ethan? Mark surveyed the scene with growing alarm. Rachel called saying there was an emergency, but this is he trailed off, noticing Ethan's ridiculous outfit and Lily's tear-streaked face. Perfect timing, I said, beckoning him inside. Since we're all here, dirty laundry, let's make it complete. Ethan made a move toward his friend Mark. This isn't what? Save it. Mark cut him off. Looking disgusted, I warned you months ago this would blow up in your face. So Mark had known another betrayal to add to the growing list. What Ethan doesn't realize, I continued smoothly, is that I met with Mark last week, not as his friend's wife, but as a potential client. Ethan froze. What, our firm's been expanding its PR crisis management division? Mark explained, not meeting Ethan's eyes. Rachel wanted to consult about a theoretical situation involving corporate partner misconduct. Theoretical, I echoed with a small smile until it wasn't. Mark turned to face the room. Bennett and Parker Consulting takes ethical breaches extremely seriously, especially when they involve exploitation of company resources or relationships. Ethan's face drained of what little color it had left. Mark, buddy, come on, Lily has been your direct report for nearly a year. Mark continued coldly, a clear violation of our firm's policy on workplace relationships. You've expense accounted your hotel meetings as client entertainment. You've had her travel with you on the company dime. That's not. Ethan began. It's all documented. Mark cut him off. Every receipt, every calendar entry, every corporate card transaction. The managing partners are meeting tomorrow morning. I came tonight as a courtesy to let you know your office will be packed up by security before you arrive. Lily stepped forward, panic rising in her voice. But my job is also under review. Mark confirmed without emotion, considering the circumstances. I'd suggest updating your resume. The clinical dismantling of their professional lives seemed to hit both of them harder than the personal fallout. Ethan actually staggered, reaching for a chair to steady himself. You can't do this, he said weakly. I built that firm with you. I brought in the Westbridge account, which is now my account. Mark replied, along with all your other clients. The partnership agreement you signed has a moral conduct clause, Section 4, Paragraph 3 language you approve, if you recall. I hadn't actually known about the moral conduct clause until this moment, but I kept my face neutral. Every new revelation was another gift. Another confirmation that my instincts had been right. I felt a surge of bitter satisfaction rising in my chest, a dark relief that everything he thought he'd hidden so well was unraveling in front of an audience. It was like the air had finally cleared, the thick fog of lies lifting so I could breathe again, even if each breath still tasted of betrayal. Yet as Ethan swayed on his feet, pale and humiliated, a flicker of guilt pierced through my resolve. Was I becoming as ruthless as he was? Had the need for justice twisted me into something I wouldn't recognize in the mirror tomorrow? The thought chilled me, but I forced myself to hold steady. Daniel had been watching this exchange with growing comprehension. He turned to Lily. So you're losing your job too? No apartment in Seattle, no income. Were you planning to use my family's money to support yourself while continuing this? Before she could answer, Mrs. Carter stepped forward, her previous shock hardening into cold fury. The wedding is off, she announced. I will not watch my son marry a woman capable of such deception. Mom, please. Lily began. I've already called Father McCormick, her mother continued relentlessly. He's agreed. The church cannot, in good conscience, proceed with a ceremony founded on such dishonesty. Mr. Carter nodded grimly. I'll contact the vendors tomorrow. Better to lose deposits than proceed with this farce. The systematic dismantling of Lily's carefully planned wedding seemed to break something in her. She sank into a chair, her white satin robe now stained with mascara and wine. What am I supposed to do now? She whispered more to herself than anyone. I felt a strange moment of sympathy for her. Despite everything, she was young, misguided, selfish. But watching her world collapse was like witnessing a car crash in slow motion. That's not our problem anymore. Daniel said, his voice firmer than before. He removed his engagement ring and placed it on the table in front of her. I deserve better than this. We all do. Ethan had regained some composure and turned to me with narrowed eyes. You planned all this, the dramatic confrontation, the financial revelations calling Mark. No, I corrected him. I discovered your betrayal 3 hours ago. Everything since has been improvisation, but effective improvisation built on months of subliminal preparation, while my subconscious processed what my conscious mind couldn't accept. I approached him slowly for months. I felt something was wrong. I've been collecting evidence without even realizing what I was doing. Documenting discrepancies, noting inconsistencies in your stories. My body knew we were in danger before my mind caught up. I stood directly in front of him, now close enough to smell his cologne. The new one I'd noticed months ago, but hadn't questioned while you were plotting your escape. I was instinctively building my defense. That's the difference between us, Ethan. You destroy, I protect. Their remaining bridesmaids had given up any pretense of discretion and were openly recording the confrontation on their phones tomorrow. This would be a lover their social circles by next week. It would ripple through the entire company. Ethan and Lily had not just lost their relationship cover, they'd lost their reputations, their professional standing, their carefully constructed future. You've ruined me, Ethan said quietly. No, I replied equally soft. You did that yourself. I'm just making sure I don't go down with you. It turned to address the room one last time. I think we've all seen enough. Daniel, Mr. and Mrs. Carter, I'm truly sorry about the wedding. The fault lies with these two, not with you. Mr. Carter nodded stiffly. We appreciate your directness in bringing this to our attention. Daniel stepped forward and unexpectedly took my hand. Thank you, he said simply. It hurts like hell right now, but you saved me from something much worse. Mark moved toward the door. Ethan, you have until noon tomorrow to turn in your company phone, laptop, and credentials. The firm will be conducting a full audit of your accounts. As people began to disperse, the energy in the room, shifting from explosive confrontation to the hollow aftermath, Ethan made one last attempt to salvage something. Rachel, we need to talk privately about this. 16 years can't end like this. I looked at him. Really looked at him for perhaps the first time in months. The man I had loved, built a life with, trusted completely. Now a stranger in a ridiculous costume, desperately trying to maintain control of a situation spiraling far beyond his grasp. 16 years didn't end tonight. Ethan, I said quietly, they ended the first time you decided I wasn't enough, the first time you lied, the first time you chose her. I picked up my purse and folder. I'll be staying at the Lakeshore Inn tonight. I added with deliberate irony, you can start packing your things. My lawyer will contact you about the house. I walked out without looking back. leaving Ethan standing alone in his tearaway pants, surrounded by the wreckage of champagne glasses, white satin decorations, and shattered illusions. 6 months can change everything. I'm sitting on the deck of a cabin in the mountains watching the sunset behind pine trees. The air is crisp with early autumn, and my coffee has gone cold beside me. I don't mind these days. I'm learning to appreciate things as they are, not as I think they should be. The divorce was finalized last month, quicker and cleaner than most, thanks to the financial documentation I'd gathered, and Ethan's desire to avoid further public humiliation. He didn't fight for the house or contest the asset division. His lawyer made a half-hearted attempt to claim I had set him up with the public confrontation, but even that fizzled when faced with the evidence of his financial deceptions. I sold the house, couldn't bear to live in it anymore. Too many shadows in the corners, too many conversations embedded in the walls. I bought this cabin instead, 2 hours from the city, close enough to commute 3 days a week to my new job at a nonprofit arts foundation. Fair not to feel like a fresh start. Ethan and Lily didn't last 3 weeks after that night without the excitement of secrecy, without their planned Seattle escape, without their jobs or social standing. Whatever had fueled their affair quickly burned out. Last I heard, he'd moved to Portland to restart his career. She'd gone back to her parents' home in another state. Her reputation in our city unsalvageable after videos from that night went viral in certain social circles. I'm not proud of how things unfolded. The public nature of the confrontation, while satisfying in the moment, left collateral damage I hadn't anticipated. Daniel's younger sister, the junior bridesmaid, apparently cried for days. Lily's grandmother had a minor health scare from the stress. The ripples of pain extended far beyond the immediate participants. Yet I can't bring myself to regret it either. Some betrayals run so deep that only the harsh light of complete exposure can properly cauterize the wound. My phone buzzes with a text message. It's Daniel checking in, as he occasionally does. We're not dating, both too raw, too wary for that. But we've developed an unexpected friendship, trauma bonding. My therapist calls it whatever it is. It helps to talk to someone who understands exactly how it feels to have your future stolen and rewritten without your consent. Still on for coffee next week. His message reads, I text back a simple yes, looking forward to it. He started a new job, moved to a different apartment, adopted a dog, small steps toward rebuilding. We're both doing that in our own ways. The hardest part wasn't losing Ethan, it was losing my trust in my own judgment, in my perceptions, in my ability to discern truth from fiction. For months after I questioned every memory, were there signs I missed, clues I ignored? Had our entire marriage been a performance on his part? My therapist says that's normal. That betrayal of this magnitude rewires your brain temporarily. Makes you scan constantly for threats. She says it will fade with time. I'm still waiting. The sun has almost disappeared, now painting the sky in watercolor strokes of orange and purple. I wrap my cardigan tighter around my shoulders and think about what I've learned these past 6 months. I've learned that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's the quiet voice that documents discrepancies, that pays attention to unease, that refuses to be gaslighted into disbelieving its own perceptions. I've learned that endings, while painful, can also be doorways. I've learned that I am more resilient than I ever imagined. The financial settlement from the divorce is enough to support me while I build this new life. The job at the Arts Foundation pays less than my corporate position, but it feeds my soul in ways I'd forgotten were possible. Thekaba needs work. The roof leaks in heavy rain. The heating system is temperamental, but fixing these things with my own hands has become unexpectedly therapeutic. Yesterday, I hung new curtains in the bedroom, such as Impel Acti, and it felt monumental. These curtains weren't chosen to match someone else's preferences, or to accommodate a shared aesthetic. They're boldly patterned, slightly impractical, entirely meant as darkness settles over the mountains. I gather my empty coffee cup and prepare to head inside. A text arrives from my sister. How's mountain woman doing tonight? I smile and type back, peaceful, finally peaceful. And it's true, the anger hasn't disappeared entirely. It flares occasionally when a memory ambushes me or when a mutual friend mentions Ethan, but it no longer consumes me. It's no longer the primary color of my existence. In the end, what Ethan and Lily never understood is that taking back your power doesn't require elaborate schemes or perfect. Dear friend, sometimes life shatters in an instant. Not to punish you, but to set you free from illusions you didn't know you were clinging to. The Greeks believed that true wisdom comes from seeing things as they are, not as you wish them to be. And in the harshest moments, we are given the gift of that clarity. You are stronger than you think. When everything familiar falls apart, you find the parts of yourself you forgot existed, the fierce, unshakable core that refuses to be broken. Don't fear the storm. Know that on the other side, there is a horizon you never imagined, waiting just for you. Remember, even when betrayal tries to redefine your worth, your truth is yours alone, and standing in it is the bravest thing you will ever do. Stay resilient, stay true, and keep walking forward. If this story touched you, please consider liking the video, sharing it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribing for more stories of strength and healing. Thank you for being here.